here with Mike. Tuesday Talks with Mike about writing and all things entertainment.
Good morning, folks. This morning I'd like to talk about how to attend a comic convention. As you can see, my coach is always with me. Freddie tells me what I should say, and I do what Freddie says. My first comic convention, I believe, was in Chicago in 1982. It was held in an old hotel near the airport. And it was a relatively small event, although it seemed huge to me at the time. And I had a great time. And it wasn't long before, I think it was the following year, 83, that I attended San Diego Con for the first time. I went to San Diego Comic Convention 13 times in a row, and it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The first time I went, it was held in the basement of an old hotel. And that's a long time ago, folks. And that's where I met Jack Kirby on his 70th birthday. I never talked to Kirby. I just went up to him and said, "Happy birthday, King," and shook his hand, and that was my interaction. But then we switched over to the San Diego Comic-Con, and as I mentioned, it kept getting bigger. And the San Diego Comic-Con is an immense facility, but the comic convention in the 80s and 90s filled it completely. In fact, it filled the entire city. There was nowhere you could go in San Diego without running into cosplayers, guests, and fans who were there for the convention. The last time I went is several years ago, I think 7 or 8 years ago, when I was a guest of the con. And the throngs were so heavy that it looked like a scene down on the southern border, except people weren't dressed as well. And there were police at every intersection, directing traffic hither and yon. It took an hour to get anywhere because of the mobs. It wasn't that long a distance. It was just because of the mobs. One thing I noticed about the San Diego Comic-Con and about every major con I've attended since is there's always some creep, sometimes several, with something to sell with a boom box. And the boom box is, you can't hear any music that comes out of it. All you can hear is the bass, and you can feel it in your bones as it fills the whole hall. And I've been railing against these things ever since I started going to cons. I don't think they should be allowed. I think con organizers should put down a rule: no boom boxes. They're nothing but a nuisance. So finally, and the cons were so loud because they're held in hard surfaced halls that I could hardly hear myself think. See this? I got this at a gun store. It's to protect your ears while you're shooting, and it works great. It cuts the noise down by about 70%. Many years ago, John Davis told me about a unique event that takes place on Saturday, the San Diego Comic-Con. It's called the Fanboy Shuffle. It's exactly at noon, a group of cosplayers gather at the southwest corner of the main hall and race to the northeast corner to see who can get there first. The rules are very clear. You can't shove anyone. You can't knock anybody down. You have to respect people who are moving. And one year I decided to keep my eyes open, and it was a real thing. Here they came juking through the crowd, dodging people this way and that. I don't know what the prize was, but the Fanboy Shuffle was a real thing. I wonder if it's still going on. These days, I'm not too crazy about massive cons for reasons I mentioned. I was at the Colorado Springs Comic-Con in August, and it's not that big a con, but it was held in a hockey rink. And at noon, the crowds were so thick that if you fainted, you wouldn't fall down. And that's what it's like at San Diego every year. These days, I prefer smaller cons, although I will be at MegaCon in Orlando in March, the first week in March, along with the whole Rippaverse crew.
That's in February, first weekend of February. Isn't it in February?
Thank you, my dear. So Freddie, how did you miss that? Freddie's supposed to keep me up to date on these things. The first week in February, I think it's February 1st through the 4th. I will be there from the 2nd through the 4th. If you're in the area, please come on by and say hi. I'll have books to sell. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not crazy about the plane flight. I always pray before I go to one of these cons that I'll get a direct flight, but we'll see. So my advice to you is if you're attending a con, get one of these or use earplugs. Carry your own water. I'd say carry your own food too, but the food services vary wildly from con to con. Some cons have good food, some cons have bad food. The bigger the con, the more likely it is to have a green room. A green room is a room for celebrities to gather where they often have free food. Of course, it's a mecca to starving comic book artists.
Yeah, we've had really several great green rooms, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Excuse me, I have a froggy in my throat. Well, what does our mentor Freddie have to say about all of this? Freddie, do you have a comment? Yeah, you're a good boy. All right. And then you are going to be at a con in Wisconsin in March. I believe that's the first weekend in March.
I'm waiting to hear from the people, the MegaCon people. They've had me there several times. It's usually held at the Frank Lloyd Wright Center on Lake Monona. But we'll see. I'm waiting to hear right now.
Okay.
Because I do see that they have a con in Milwaukee a couple weeks previously, and that may be it for MegaCon in Wisconsin this year. They're a small outfit, but I'll find out. And when I find out, you'll find out.
Okay, very good. Also, reminder, Mike has a Patreon. So if you're wanting him to review scripts or writings, discuss writing, comic books, you can sign up for the Patreon. There's a level. There's several different levels. So if that's something you're interested in, it's just under Mike Barron, Patreon. And appreciate you watching, subscribing, liking, commenting. What, did you have something else?
Yeah, if you sign up for Patreon, I will send you a graphic novel I did that's unique and far out. You'll love it. It's called The Architect. It's a horror story based on the life of Frank Lloyd Wright. It's unavailable from anyone but me. Very good. So there it is. A special comic book you can only get from Mike when you become a new subscriber to the Patreon. And I think the levels, I should know this stuff because I set it up, but I think the levels start at like $5 or $10. Very, very small minimum levels if you're interested. All right, well, we're trying to get back on track with these videos. Thanks for watching. Have a great week, everyone. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.